All right, great. Do you guys have any questions about e-prescribing, how it works, before we go through today's demo?
No, we've utilized e-prescribing before, so we're
Okay.
familiar with the process in general, but just not with your products.
Okay. I want to speak to the difference out of the gate. We've really honed the e-prescribing process for hospice clinicians as well as physicians. I think we're the first product to step out into hospice and really understand your needs day to day. The system that you used, may I ask, was it EPCS certified? And that's an acronym for e-prescribing controlled substances?
I believe so, but that, I don't know. I would assume so.
Just, you know what might be a good thing, Max, too, as we go into this is they are current, as you know, they have for the past year or so, a little over a year been using, obviously they have been with HospiMed and have been using HospiMed's internal e-prescribe, their application, which is, you and I discussed, so to give you an idea, that's what their preview, what they're used to as far as e-prescribe is their internal application.
Okay, great. Well, that provides some helpful background to what you're doing. So our solution, it's cloud-based. It'll let you guys e-prescribe from any computer, laptop, tablet. We even offer our own apps. The apps can be downloaded on iOS or Android devices, and they're built for both clinicians and physicians. I want to show the cloud-based solution first. It'll give you a better understanding of the inner workings. I'll then flip over and show you what the app looks like from a physician's point of view. So why would a hospice e-prescribe? One, to reduce risk. We're certified. It eliminates faxing. And two, to streamline your workflow. We would give each clinician and physician their own login and password. Upon logging into RxNT, you're going to be taken to a universal home screen. This home screen is the same whether I'm a nurse or a physician, and it allows me to view the most recent prescriptions we've e-prescribed from our hospice. It's a running total. I'm sure right now you're faxing scripts off to the pharmacies. You may or may not be having to call them as a follow-up. Hey, did you get my prescription? On this home screen, we give you peace of mind and confirmation that the pharmacy has received your prescription. It is highlighted in green.
Okay, great.
Your nurses can go through the entire prescription process. They're the ones that'll probably be queuing up these meds for the physician. Let's go through that. They'll write out, they'll add the patient, they'll write out the script, choose a pharmacy. That sends the prescription to the physician's smartphone. The physician, wherever they are, can pull out their smartphone and review and approve that prescription. It's then transmitted to the pharmacy. That shows up in the physician's pending queue. All the physician has to do is simply check the box and approve the prescription. So it's that simple from their perspective. I do want to mention that the physician can edit or change the prescription in pharmacy. Are you guys handling any refills, or do you guys take any phone-in or fax requests from pharmacies?
Our nurses handle refills for medication, so when they go out and see their patient, yeah, they're handling that.
So the nurses can get the same refill requests. Now they'll come right to your smartphone through RxNT. The nurse can simply check and approve the refill request or void it out. The nurse could even send a message back to the pharmacist letting them know why you don't want to refill it.
Okay.
All right. We're going to perform a one-time load of your existing patient database. Once that's loaded, any new patients from, let's say, today forward, those will have to be manually entered. We want to make that process efficient. In the top right corner, there's a new icon. The fields in yellow indicate the bare minimum. Now, to reduce this by 2 fields even, when you put in the zip code, it's going to calculate the city and state for you. And once you're finished, just add the patient. I'm going to go back to that home screen. If instead we're going into an existing patient, perhaps they were added yesterday or sometime in the past, I don't have to add them each time. Instead, I could just search for their name in the top right corner. And we're going to go into a demo patient today, Rita Henderson. So you're now looking at a patient's profile. Before we e-prescribe, I just want to highlight these 4 tabs down the left-hand navigation pane. The medications tab is where we would e-prescribe from. We're going to come back to this tab. The allergies and the problems, you can update these. It's optional. We recommend that you do because we check for drug to allergy and drug to diagnoses interactions. So maybe this is part of the nurse's workflow. Lastly, there's a notes tab. You can add small back office notes as it relates to the patient's prescribing. These can be done from the app as well. I wrote Peter Jones, he documented the patient request refills early. And this is shared between your nurses and physicians. The medications tab, which is the default, I referenced that this is where you would e-prescribe from. It also displays a list of the patient's current medications that they're on. We will also check for drug-to-drug interactions at the point of prescribing. Within the RxNT system, we'll let you create your own favorite drugs list. This is ideal for hospice because we might load in your comfort packs or comfort kits, certain medications that you guys prescribe day in and day out. It's much simpler to choose from this list than it would be to perform a search each time. Now to the right, you'll see PBM and formulary. We're going to import HPS's PBM and formulary, so that'll display. And the benefit is when we go to e-prescribe, which we'll do in just a moment, we're always going to let you know if that medication will or will not be covered on their formulary. Before we prescribe, I just want to mention there's a previous and avoided tab. Previous would show any discharged medications for the patient. Voided will just list any voided medications you might have canceled. From any of these tabs, including the current list that you're viewing, for convenience, you can always refill meds right from this tab. So you're not having to go through and rewrite each of these prescriptions. All right, let's go ahead and prescribe. We're going to do a morphine pack, and I'm going to perform a search for morphine 10. Based on my search, it's going to retrieve all the morphine 10s that are presently on the market. You'll notice in front of each of the morphines a little symbol, which happen to be these blue bubbles. Match the symbol with the formulary key above, and that's going to let you know if the medication will or will not be covered by HPS. We'll choose the oral solution. It's going to bring me to the drug information. To the right, it'll indicate the coverage, and below that, any alternatives that I might want to choose instead. The bottom right, you'll see the term custom SIGs. This is where you're able to build out your own comfort kits or comfort packs. You're typically given a recommendation by the FDA. And then lastly, you can create something from scratch by choosing Create New SIG. You may or may not notice this interaction tab has been blinking in red. It'll prompt you for an interaction. It looks like it's prompting me for a drug to drug. We're never going to prevent you from writing a medication. We're simply here to inform you about the interaction. We'll choose a custom SIG. Since the custom SIG is pre-filled, your nurse does not have to edit the screen unless they want to. This can be changed on the fly. Perhaps we need to tweak the dose for this one patient. Since nothing has to be changed, we can skip this screen and continue to the pharmacy search. Before I do so, I just want to mention a few things here. You can tweak the dosage. I could tweak the quantity. I could use generic or not. I could save this SIG even for future use. Pharmacist notes is a free text. You might add fill as directed. You might type in hospice pay. You can add a diagnosis to the bottle as well. All right, if the medication looks accurate, the final selection is the pharmacy search page. Your hospice, you guys can load in your own favorite pharmacies list. That way you can just pick from this menu. Additionally, RxNT will remember the most recent 15 pharmacies you've had this patient's prescription filled at. Those will save under the patient favorite pharmacies list. Lastly, you could perform a local search. Christina, could you share your zip code with me?
29201.
No, it defaults to your home state. So let's go ahead and back out New York. Hopefully these pharmacies look familiar to you.
Yeah.
Great.
Hawthorne. Yeah.
You can also perform a surrounding search. I'm going to drop the last number. I could even type in C for CVS if I wanted to, but let's just do a surrounding search. It'll provide me a more comprehensive list. What's important when you're prescribing is to look at the very last column, type. If it has a checkbox with EPCS, that's an indication that the pharmacy will accept controlled substances. For today's demo, I do need to choose a demo pharmacy, which then takes me to a final preview of what the prescription is going to look like. All the physician's information, patient, and you'll see the physician's digital signature. Once the nurse has previewed this prescription, the nurse would then click Save as Pending. That triggers the notification to the physician's smartphone for final approval. You'll notice there's a send button on my screen as well. The prescription process that we just went through is the same, whether I'm a nurse and I'm queuing it up for a physician, or if I am the physician and I write this prescription myself, the process is the same. I want to highlight any controlled substance prescription, the DEA requires what they call a two-factor authentication. This is required for Schedule 2 through 5s. It prompts the physician to simply re-enter the same login password they used to get into RxNT. They're then prompted for an OTP password, which is a one-time password. This is retrieved from the token. We offer either a small key fob. This is an independent device. It's the size of a Tootsie Roll Pop. Each physician would carry around with them. They'd probably put it on their car keys. As an alternative, if you don't want to carry around the key fob, we offer an app that you can download. This is not the RxNT E-Prescribing app. This is a third-party app through our token supplier SafeNet, and it's solely used to retrieve your one-time passcodes. What's more popular? 9 out of 10 hospices we work with choose the small key fob for flexibility. Why? Well, the DEA expects you, if you chose the app, the DEA expects you to retrieve the passcode and e-prescribe from 2 separate devices. That poses a problem for most physicians, unless they have a personal iPhone or a personal device, and then maybe a company-issued device. The physician can then type in the one-time password, and the controlled substance can be sent. Any questions so far?
No, that's pretty straightforward.
Okay, great. One thing I want to mention is if it's a non-controlled substance, your nurses could send those on their own if you give them the authority. Just like I mentioned at the beginning of the call, they can authorize refills for non-controlled substances. If there's no questions, I'll go ahead and migrate over to the app and show you what it looks like from a mobile perspective.
Max, this is Scott. Hold on one second. Corey, do we have anything on our end that we might, well, while we're at this little pause, anything we want to add as part of, you know, our part, anything while we're in the middle here?
No, the only thing I was going to add is that, of course, you mentioned the formulary will be loaded. In his favorites list, we will also provide the HPS favorite list for those drugs as well. So that'll be loaded as well.
Okay, perfect.
Go ahead, Max. I thought that we may have a few points to we wanted to just press on with that. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, guys, I'm going to migrate to my iPhone, and let me know if you can now see my iPhone.
Yes.
Awesome. So in the world of hospice, this is, I think, by far the more popular route. Same concept as the cloud-based solution. You would log into the app using the same username and password. And I'm going to start with the physician workflow and show the simplicity to that first. So remember, the physician gets the notification, you have a pending prescription, it prompts them to log into the app. When the physician logs in, all they have to do is tap their finger on the pending tab at the bottom. They can review their pending prescriptions. It's as simple as tapping your finger on the circle, which will check off a medication. They can then approve the scripts to be sent off. From a nurse's perspective, the nurse can use this as well. We talked about refills, so maybe the nurse is authorizing this refill. The nurse can come in, tap her finger, and approve or void out. The full prescription process, that is also doable from the app. I'm looking at the home screen. I can start by searching for an existing patient at the top. Since you're adding your patients manually, if you're looking at the middle of the screen, I can start with a new patient as well. We'll go back into a demo patient, going to Christy Gray's. This is her profile. The menu at the bottom is going to show her current medications list, history of medications. It'll display the HPS PBM and those notes that I referenced. Those notes are shared between your staff. The favorites list that Corey referenced, those will be loaded in for you. Tap your finger on the favorites tab and all of those will appear. Or you can perform a search. Choose the oral solution. It offers the custom SIGs, which are your comfort packs, a recommendation, and then any alternatives. I'll choose the custom SIG that's already been built. From here, it gives you an overview of the medication. You can make tweaks if you want, or if everything looks accurate, I can move on to the pharmacy page. At the bottom, I have my menu of prescriber favorite pharmacies. I also have my patient favorite pharmacies list. And then lastly, I could perform a local search if I wanted to. I'm going to go and choose that demo pharmacy from earlier. And we present you with a final preview on the app as well. It's an overview of the patient info, prescriber, pharmacy, and medication. So if I'm a nurse, again, if this is a controlled, my only capability would be to save as pending. That queues it up for the physician. I'm logged in as a physician, so that's why you see the send icon, and I can send the prescription off right here and now. Any questions about the app? Any questions about the difference between the cloud-based solution versus the app?
Hi, this is Nancy. I just had a question. If the physician writes a physical script, we still put it in through there, and then the physician still has to go in and send it, correct?
We want to avoid all written scripts. So instead, he would actually type out the script on the app. And with some of the conveniences like the HPS favorite list, you creating your own custom SIGs, the physician actually wouldn't even have to type out the script. He'd be able to just choose from a few different prompts. Did that adequately answer your question?
Yeah, we just have some areas, we just have, you know, some docs that are still in 1992. And all computer systems or phone stuff just overwhelms them. So just that I have one or two that are like that, but that's fine. They need to get used to coming into the next century, so it's all right.
Totally get it. And, you know, once you introduce this technology to physicians and they fully understand the benefit, it could be 4 a.m. They have their smartphone and the key fob on their nightstand. They don't even have to get out of bed to approve prescriptions anymore. So I think once they see the value, I think adoption comes fairly quickly. And to that same point, RxNT offers unlimited training to you and your hospice. We also offer full support to get your physicians and your clinicians operational.
We're going to need that in Edgefield, South Carolina.
Well, we're more than happy to provide it.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Any other questions? Scott, Corey, anything to add?
No, I don't have anything to add. To the lady that asked the last question, you know, we are, of course, we want adoption of this throughout the organization, but we do understand going through our sales process that not the entire organization is using E-Prescribe, and so, you know, it'll be a work in progress. So if there is situations that you have a physical script and it's a physician that's not is just like hell bent on not using this, well, hey, that's we have to go with what the physician wants to do, and you can send that prescription to the pharmacy and it will adjudicate as normal. So just to let you know.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Honestly, I think if I go forward and just say, look, that option's not available anymore, we might be able to get them on board.
Okay.
I'll try that route first, and we'll see how it goes.
See what kind of pushback you get. I got you. Okay.
All right. Well, guys, I very much appreciate your time. Any questions, kindly route them through Corey or Scott. They have my contact information. They're more than happy to share it with you. We can speak directly if need be.
I do have one other question. This is Erica in Mississippi. When the nurse completes the e-script and it goes to the physician, is there like a certain period of time, you know, before he has to sign it, that it'll bounce back to let the nurse know that he hasn't signed off on it? Because it may be during the middle of clinic.
You're breaking up there on the last half of your question.
I'm just wondering, is there a certain period of time that, you know, if the doctor has not signed off on or approved it, does it come back to the nurse saying not approved, or what's the next step?
Yeah. So great question. You can absolutely track the timestamps. There's not going to be a notification sent back to the nurse, but let's say you queue up a medication and 5 hours have passed and you're questioning, you know, why isn't it showing in my recent tab? I don't see that it's been sent out. You have view-only access to the pending, and you'll be able to see that it was the entry date with a timestamp. that might prompt you to then text the physician or call him, kind of pushing them to approve the script. Now, you also have view-only access to the voided tab. So if that physician voided it, it would show up here. On the flip side, if they did approve it, again, that would just show up in the recent, showing what's been sent. So that data is visible, but there's no notifications sent back.
So Max, I know that you know that we're changing our PBM, and our go live date for HPS is June the 1st. So we certainly need e-prescribing, and have, would like to go with you guys. What does a training schedule look like for staff and physicians for this software?
Great. Well, June 1st, very doable. It's a 3-step process to getting you guys operational. Just break it out simply. Step 1 is getting the completed enrollment forms back to HPS so they can be processed. Verifying credentials of the physicians. Step 2 is, the interface, meaning we're going to perform the one-time download of your patients. We're going to implement your favorites list and implement the HPS formulary for you. And then step 3 is training. To answer your question point blank, the training's done via screen share. We typically like to host 2 different sessions. One session should be geared towards clinician workflow. The second should be geared towards physician workflow. We recommend the physicians sitting on the clinicians. We also recommend the clinicians sitting on the physicians, just so everyone at your organization has an understanding of the inner workings and how they'll work together as a team in using our software. Each training session is about an hour and a half. So what we would like to do is probably set up training both on the same day if possible, if not within 2 to 3 days. We can also set up subsequent training the following day or a few days later to highlight anything we missed or any questions that are left after the training. So we would look to start scheduling that as soon as possible. If you have dates in mind, share that with Corey and I, and we can put a block on the calendar.
Okay. Nancy and Erica, I hate to speak for everyone else, but we're the only ones on the call. So do you think it would be best to piggyback this on the already scheduled HPS training?
Yeah, I do. I think that makes the most sense. They're going to be there. I don't know about the physicians.
Yeah, that's going to be the biggest thing with physicians, trying to get them in to do it.
Yeah.
How long did you say the training would last? You said about an hour to an hour and a half.
Train's about an hour and a half.
Okay.
With questions, it could always run over, but I think to be safe, an hour and a half is usually run of the mill.
I think for staff doing it at the same time, the physicians, though, we might have to do something separate because.
I was thinking the same thing. The physicians is going to be difficult trying to get them in to the office, for an hour and a half, if longer, to do a training. Even if we did it all on the same day, or just get them in the office period for a long length of time.
I guess the other option would be to, I know not every office has a team leader, but whoever the nurses that interacts with that medical director the most frequently, if there's not a team leader in that office, to get them to sit down and do the training with the physician. Because you're right. Unfortunately, our medical director, we have one full-time medical director, but for the most part, these medical directors, you know, are contracted employees that are there for IDTs and things like that, but they also have practices and have really busy schedules.
For example, Dr. Pham, like Joe Wood can show Dr. Pham and give him his key fob, and he's
Would we also need to have the nurse practitioners there as well who will need to go through the training as well?
They wouldn't have to because they only do face-to-face. They don't do any prescribing.
Yeah, how long
Well, our nurse practitioner does do prescribing.
You can kind of think about, I mean, I know this is maybe a little bit more, I mean, I don't think it's.
Well, I think Nancy brought up a good point. For the physicians who are utilizing what we're doing right now, it wasn't hard. The problem has been that not all of our physicians are willing to use ERX. And so, I don't know, Nancy, do you know what the rollout looked like the last time? I had literally.
I don't, but I think we can work out a schedule. Like I would love for someone to come to do the two physicians in Region 2, maybe at their office during lunchtime, and we can provide a lunch or something for them and get them on board from day one.
Yeah, I agree.
They would definitely need it because they're not using the system we have now because they're old-fashioned doctors.
Yeah.
And you guys know your critical list of physicians that probably are going to need it day one, and I would start there in the list and then do a rollout as needed.
I think for the majority of our medical directors, the nurses that interact with them the most could really walk them through the process and they'll be fine because they already use a system that's very similar. But like that physician group in Edgeville, McCormick, and then probably the physician in Mississippi, they are going to be the most difficult because they're just not used to technology.
I think that having you guys to have some champions behind that in those regions and then just showing them would probably be the best. And then Max, we can then follow up and even provide support when they're ready for the more intensive training if needed, correct? May have muted out.
Correct, absolutely.
Yep.
You're on mute.
Yep.
I was wondering why no one responded.
That's okay. That's okay. No worries at all. We're just kind of talking through it there, though. So, Corey, did you have anything else on our end? I think that we brought up the fact that our favorites list or form will be added on there as well. And then any other thing on our end? I don't have anything on mine. Corey's muted as well.
And I may have missed this, but Max, you said there is a capability to, if the physician is not willing to use E-Prescribing, we have a written script. Is there a mechanism to make that happen if we just have a written script for a controlled substance, other than faxing it just directly to the pharmacy? I guess that would be what we would need to do. We wouldn't have a need to use the E-Prescribe if we have a written fax.
Yeah.
No, go ahead, Max. I'm sorry. You can answer that better.
Scott, go ahead. Why don't you start and I'll chime in.
No, I was going to say I'll let Max, but no, but you're right. I mean, there really probably wouldn't be on that. I mean, there's always going to be some instances where you're not. I mean, there actually may be a few offices, as you now that you're not really utilizing it. So I wouldn't reinvent the wheel on that instance. I would probably start with locations that we know are using this day to day, and then bring it on like that. And then there's always going to be, there's always going to be instances. And Max, I'll let you say that where you're going to be sticking with the I just call it the quote unquote old method.
Right.
And is there any other things, Max, you can think of where that you would be just using fax or handwritten?
No, I mean, our system can accommodate all scripts, and to try to get everyone on, a concerted effort, it makes sense to move them electronic. To Scott's point, some might be adverse and want to do paper, but just keep in mind, if you do any prescription handwritten, that's not going to translate to RxNT. So it's not going to show up in the patient's currents list, and
Right.
It's not going to show
so
up
that'll be the-
anywhere.
It will show up on the HPS.
It will show up on our side,
Yeah.
yes. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, we've got a medical director in Atlanta. She's 72, and when we signed her on as a medical director, the first words out of her mouth were, "I don't do computers." So,
well,
but she's a great referral source, and she's in one of our facilities. So we're
well,
certainly
yeah,
not
like I
gonna-
said, I mean, you're gonna have those situations, and so, but like you said, you'll have that information within us where it all will come back to.
Yeah.
So, but to Max's point, as many as possible, so you can have the full loop on it.
So to close the loop on where we need to go from here, Max, do I just need to email you and Corey about tagging on that training on the back end of the HPS training that we already have scheduled? Because I think we're in a general consensus that's going to be the best idea. We'll have a captive audience at that point.
Shelby can help with that too. Shelby and Shelby, and then CC Corey and I in on that if we want to add points. But Shelby, because she'll be, she's spearheading the other trainings and putting all that into the system. And then Corey and I can add any background around, and inform Max and anything else beyond that as well. And we'll link Max with Shelby as well.
Okay.
So she'll know.
Right.
Corey, anything
So,
else?
Christina, have you received the co-branded enrollment form, the 4-page document? Have you received that yet?
No.
Okay. We'll get that to you today, shortly.
Okay.
I'll get with Shelby because I sent it to Shelby, but I think I may have told her. It might, my bad. I think I said, well, hold off until we complete the demo, and then we'll send you the document.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
And two, just to make sure, I think it's and I apologize for this too. There has been some back and forth. Kathy has owned a majority of this, and I've just tried to help. But certainly with her not being able to be on the call, you guys can send it to me. I'll make sure we're on the same page, and we'll get something scheduled.
All righty.
Perfect. All right, guys. Well, again, I appreciate your time. Look forward to the next steps, and let me know if you have any questions about e-prescribing.
Okay, Max. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys. Bye.